Hello everyone, welcome to CSS crash course. So let's understand what is CSS and all the basics about CSS in this video. So CSS stands for cascading style sheets. So basically CSS is used to style the HTML elements and render onto the page, like all the different type of things like colors, applying the colors or background color or borders or margins, padding and height and the font styles also. All these things comes under CSS. So if you navigate to any modern application like Facebook or Google or Airbnb or any application where you see all the colors and the text and the styles and all are developed with CSS. If you want to become a UI developer in 2024, you must understand all the CSS classes and the possible ways style the HTML components in all the possible ways and align them and style them. Okay, so all the modern frameworks like Angular or React or Vue.js or Next.js, all these frameworks uses CSS. So without learning CSS, you cannot work as a UI developer in any of these frameworks. CSS has a rule that consists of a selector and the declaration box. So a selector can be a HTML tag or a class name or an ID, and the declaration box will have two values which is property and value. So each property can be a color, a font style or font size or anything, and the value should be the actual value, color name like a blue, yellow kind of thing. So any CSS that you are writing, it follows this specific structure. Let's discuss how we can apply the CSS to a specific HTML element, like what are the ways. Okay, there are three different ways to apply the CSS for a HTML element. Okay, first one is using a class. Okay, and using a class, if you create a class, it can be reused across different HTML pages, and we can create once and use it as many times as possible. Okay, this is the most recommended way. And the second one is using an ID. ID is specific to a specific HTML element, and it is we are narrowing down this particular CSS scope to a specific HTML element only. Wherever we use this ID, it will be applied. Third one is inline style. Inline styles can be just applied to that specific element where you use that inline style, but this is not recommended. Okay, and even we can directly apply the CSS to direct HTML elements itself instead of using any class or ID, using like a div tag or span tag and all. Let's look at all these four in this video and write the CSS and understand. Okay, now I have a plain CSS folder. I have a main CSS and a main HTML. So I'm starting with a plain HTML file. Okay, this is a plain HTML file. I'll add a title. To HTML element. Okay, within this div, let's apply the CSS for this. Okay, let me just open this in live server. Okay, now you can see the content. Okay, the first one will start with directly applying the CSS to the HTML tag. So this is the tag, and I'll say height of 200 pixel, width of 200 pixel. Now you don't see because there is no background. Okay, now you can see. I'll say yellow green. Oh, okay. Now it is not applied because I didn't import the CSS. Okay. Let me import it. Link rel style sheet hrefs main.css. This is how you can import the CSS. Now you see the difference. Okay, now I directly apply to the HTML element itself without using any class or ID or anything. Okay, this is one way to apply the CSS to directly to the HTML element. Now you can say span tag. Okay, even let's apply the CSS to span tag as well. So to directly apply the CSS to tags, we can simply use the tag name and apply. Now I want to color this text to red. Okay, see, now master's tutorial it is converted to red. Okay, now I used a tag directly. Okay, you can directly use the tag. This is one way to apply the CSS, and this will be applied to any framework, whether it is a Angular framework or React framework or Vue.js framework. For any framework, the same CSS ways that we can apply. Okay, now let's go for the second way. So instead of directly applying the CSS here, instead I want to use a class. Okay, I'll say it is heading. Okay, instead of div, since it is a class, we need to add a dot and the name. Okay, now the same content is applied. Now let's change this to different color just to see it properly. I'll say aqua. Now you see, now the CSS is applied using the class, this one. And if you remove this class, it won't work. It won't apply anything. See? So now the CSS is applied. For this one, CSS is applied through the class, and for this one applied through the direct HTML tag. Now here also we'll say color CSS. Instead of span tag, since it is a class, I use a dot. Now you can see, now let's change it to green color. Now you see the difference. And also we'll just increase the font size. We'll go for extra large. Okay, now you see, apply the same here. So this is how you can apply the CSS using a class. Now let's change it to ID. If you want to apply the CSS using ID, you need to remove this dot and set this hash. Okay, if you use hash, it is ID. If you use dot, it is using class. If you don't use anything, it should be an actual HTML element, a tag name, but heading is not a tag name. Okay, now if you see, now the same content is applied. Let's change this to black. Okay, since content is in black color, now you cannot see it. Let's change the content to white. Okay, let me change it to white. Okay, so this is how you can apply the CSS using ID. Okay, now let me change this to ID. Okay, if I want to use this ID, I need to change this to ID. So now it is applied again. So this is how you can apply the CSS using ID. Okay, ID scope is minimal, but the class scope is more, and better to use as many classes as possible instead of ID. Okay, and the last one is inline CSS. Okay, this is not at all recommended. To write inline CSS, you need to apply the CSS here. Height 200 pixel, width 200 pixel, background color yellow green. Okay, this is how you can apply inline CSS. Okay, that means you are directly writing the CSS here itself and you don't need this import if you are writing the CSS inline. But this is not at all recommended for real-time production applications. You should always go for the tag based, HTML tag based, which is of div, or the class name based on the class name with a dot here, or you can go with the ID. But inline styles are not at all recommended for production application. Okay, these are the ways to apply the CSS for HTML elements. Okay, this is not just for plain CSS. This is for any framework like Angular, React, or Vue.js or Next.js. For any framework, this is the way you can apply the CSS. So CSS can be used with HTML in 3 different ways. Using an external CSS, or using an internal CSS, or inline CSS. Now let's look at all these 3 ways. Right now I have a CSS folder where I have a main.css file and a main.html file. So within this main.html file, let's start. So I'll start writing doc, which will give the plain HTML snippet. Okay, so I'll just add the title. Okay, now the first way to import the CSS in HTML is using a link rel. It should be a style sheet and the h reference, and we can set the file name. Okay, this is the first way to use the CSS. So let me just add a class. This is one way to use it within the CSS. Since it is a class, we can say height 200 pixel and width 200 pixel and the background color yellow green. So let me just start this using live server. So this is one way of importing the CSS into HTML file. So the next way is internal CSS. Instead of referring this particular file, we can get rid of this file, and so this is the correct way to use the CSS. Okay, the next one is using internal CSS. So for internal CSS, we can get rid of this one. Okay, and within here we can say style tag and keep the styles here. You can copy this or directly cut this and keep it here, so it will still work. Okay, let me change it to blue just to see that it is working. So this is how it will work. So this is internal CSS. That means you are keeping this CSS within the file itself, within the HTML file itself. So this is one way, but this is not recommended. Better always keep the CSS separate in the separate file, separate CSS file. Okay, the last one is inline CSS. So instead of even adding it here, we can simply write the inline CSS using style. So let me change it to yellow. So this is also one more way to apply the CSS and use it in the HTML file, but this is one of the worst implementation, and this is not recommended at all. Now let's look at CSS comments. So basically, if you want to add a comment in the CSS file, for suppose you have a div CSS here saying background color red, and if you want to add some comments in this particular file, CSS file, you need to use this forward slash star, and you can add the comment here, and the star, then forward slash. This is how you can add the comments, okay, in the CSS file. Otherwise it won't allow. Okay, let me just add a, let me comment out this one. So this is how you can comment out. Okay, if you try any other way, it will throw the error. So if you try like this, it won't allow. Okay, you have to comment out the CSS in this format. So the next one is CSS colors. Okay, so right now we have a div with a red color. So let's check all the possible colors. So we have all these possible colors to use in CSS, different colors. Okay, anything you can use. Okay, or if you still want to change these colors from here also, you can do it. You can go to, this is a CSS that is applied from this div. If you see background color height, you can simply remove this and check here which will suit your screen. Now which will suit your scenario or the screen flow, and you can check these colors here, and whatever you like. For suppose if I like this one, it's a brown, you set it here, and this won't apply to the whole. When you refresh, it will be removed. So for that reason, you can copy from there and paste it here, so that it will apply. So instead of directly giving these colors like this, instead we can even use the RGB. So you can give like this. So here like 60, 60, 60. Okay, so this is how you can give different colors, and the RGB numbers, it will range from 0 to 255, and you can use anything from ranging from 0 to 255. And also other colors, other ways to give color is, instead of directly giving the color like this, you can even give the hexadecimal number, like F. All the F's will have white color. Okay, you can change this to the hexadecimal number. To get the red color, you need to use 4 zeros here. Okay, so this is also one more way to apply the CSS. And if you give 4 zeros and FF, it will become blue. So you no need to remember these specific hexadecimal numbers. Instead, you can just understand that there is a way to color, not only by using the color names, even you can use these hexadecimal numbers also. Now let's look at background. So when it comes to the backgrounds, there are different things like background color, background image, background repeat and attachment and other things. But the major ones that we usually use in our daily basis in the production umbrella application. So the background color and the background image that we use most of the time. So we already noticed the background color here, and we can even use the background image instead of color directly, like background image, and within this image you can say URL, and you can give the path of the file directly here, so that that particular image will be added. Let me just get some example. image if there is any. So let me just get this image URL and I'm adding it here. Now if you see, the image came here, this image. Okay, this is how you can pass the background image URL. Okay, background image, this is how you can pass so that it will be visible directly on the screen. So background color and background image, these are the two that we use most of the time. And now let's look at the borders. So right now let me just remove this background image and change it to yellow green, and let's push this content to center just for display purpose. Align items center, justify content center. Okay, now the content is center aligned. Okay, now let's look at the borders. So now we have this rectangle. Okay, let's add the borders. So there are different type of CSS borders that are already available. Okay, you can directly say border style. Okay, we use border style. We have all these border styles that you can use. It is dashed. You can see the dashed here. Okay, and we can just add dotted. You can add the dotted. Instead of this, it will be much more easy to view this here. And now you can see one by one. This is dotted. Sorry, this is dashed and this is dotted. This is double. This is groove. You can see the difference. This is hidden, so there is no border. This is inset and none, no border. Outside, it will come outside. The edge, solid. So this is how you can verify your screen when you are actually really working in the production application. Whatever satisfies that particular screen as well as whatever the style that you like, you can simply take this style from here, copy and paste it here. Instead of changing the color here number of times and refreshing the page, so you can go to the developers tool and change it. That would be much better to use it. And also, not only the border style, border can have a width. So this border style can have width. Okay, right now we have a solid border and we can add the border width. Okay, so this border width can be 5. It will be used. We can add like a pixel format. So when I add 5 pixel, this is how it is. Okay, or we can simply add like medium. Okay, this is also one more way instead of directly giving the pixels, or you can even say thick. So we have different options within the border width also. Okay, whatever the CSS that you need, you can select from here and use it. Okay, so this is one more way to set the border width, and even we can even apply the border color. Okay, for that we need to use border color. So it can be any color, whatever the color that we want to use. Let's see the black color. Okay, and you can even use red. Okay, you can use any border color here. And also the border, right now when we apply border color or style, it is applied to 4 sides, right? If you want to apply these only on a specific side, so you can still go for border top style, border right style, border left style, like that. Okay, now let me add the border top style. Okay, I'll say dotted. So now if you see this border top style dotted, this dotted applied only on the top, not on any other side. So likewise you can say top, right, bottom, left. So you can apply any type of style. And the last one is how we can round this the corners. Okay, we can use border radius directly. So the border radius we can directly give like a 2 pixel. Okay, 2 pixel. It is changed little bit, it is not visible. Let me change it to 10 pixel. Now you see the border radius, it is applied to all the borders, all the sides. Okay, this is how we can apply the border radius. So now let's look at margin. So the margin is something which will be applied outside this particular element, because this div that we are using, this div margin is applied outside this particular element. Okay, so outside this, all the four sides we can apply the margin. So margin, if you apply directly like this, okay, it will be applied on four sides. Okay, top, right, bottom, left. So margin is applied on four sides. Instead, if you want to apply margin only on specific side, you can say margin top, it is applied on the top, and margin right, it is applied on the right. Okay, and margin left, you can apply only on the left. This is how you can apply the margin. You can even apply only on specific side. For that you can even say top and left. Okay, this is also one more way to apply the margin. The padding, now let's look at padding. So the margin is applied outside on all the four edges, right? So the padding applies within the component on all the four edges. Okay, let me add the padding of 50 pixel. So now the padding is applied within inside. Okay, to see it we can go to box model, and if you see, this is a content piece, and if you see there is a, this is a padding. Okay, and if you see the green portion, other than the grayed out hello content, the green portion, that is padding that is applied, and it is inside the component. Okay, and even the padding also you can only apply on a specific side, like a padding top or padding left or padding right also, and bottom. Four ways we can apply. Okay, so the next one is height and width. Okay, we already have a height here. Let's look at the height and width. Okay, so height you can give 100 pixel, but width, even though I didn't give any width, but it took the full screen. Okay, if you don't give width, it will take the full screen, but if you don't give height, it won't take the full height. That is the rule. Okay, for a width it will automatically take the full screen, but when it comes to the height, it will always take whatever the height that you give, or it will automatically pick up based on the current content on the screen. Okay, and now let me add a height of 200 pixel. Okay, if you give the width, that's when it will be applied, otherwise it will take the whole screen. Okay, now I gave 200 pixel. For that reason it took 200 pixel. If I remove it, it will take the full screen. But when it comes to the height, if I give the height, it will take the height of 300 pixel. But when I remove this, it won't take the full screen. Instead, it will take only the height of the content. Okay, height and width, this is how it will work. Next one is how we can style the content, the font style. Okay, the text style. Okay, by default if you use color, it will take that specific color within that. Okay, even if we have something more within this div, like h1 with the heading. of saying colors, it will take the same style because I'm directly applying it to complete div. So anything within this div it will apply. So this is how we can apply the color, and you can change the color to any color. These are the available colors that we have. Okay, even we can apply the gradient or hexadecimal colors. And if you want to align the text, okay, this particular text we already have align item center. Okay, that's why the content is centered. Okay, let me just remove this right now for now. Okay, if you want to align the text, there is a property called text align, and we can use this to set the text where exactly it should go. Okay, now if you see the text is center aligned. Okay, you can say right, it will go to right. If you say left, it will go to left. But with this plain text align, we cannot align this text to center both horizontally and vertically. Okay, that is not possible. For that reason we have to go for the flex box. Okay, and the next one is font. So the font side, there are different type of font styles, even Google fonts also we have. So for that we have to use a font family. So it will give options like this. This is one of the way to use the font family. Now you see the font style is changed. Okay, and the next we can try all these font styles and which will work. Whatever you like you can apply. So there are different type of font styles, not only these fonts, even we can use additional Google fonts and other fonts also. Now let's look at combinators. This is one of the important thing, and we use this again on daily basis. Okay, so a combinator is something that explains relationship between the selectors. Okay, that means for suppose you have a div, within this div we have a h1. Okay, maybe we can add a p tag. Okay, so right now this is a parent and these two are children. So if you want to apply CSS to a specific child or any other scenarios, for that type of scenario we have to go for the combinator. Okay, there are 4 different type of combinators in CSS. So let's start with the descendant selector. Okay, so what it will do is a descendant selector which will match all the elements that are descendants of a specific element. That means all the elements within this parent. Okay, descendant selector meaning anything. If you are applying CSS for this, it will take anything within this. Okay, let me write that. Okay, now we have a div, right? So to select a descendant, we can simply go for a like this. Within the div and the p tag, this CSS is going to be applied to that specific child element only. Okay, let me change it to, let me add a blue color. So now if you see the p tag changed, color changed to blue. Okay, this is how you can say it. Within the div, for this p tag we have to apply, and if you just keep one more p tag outside the div, it won't apply. Okay, because this particular CSS is applied only for the p tag that is within the div. It is not going to apply outside the div. So within this div, this p tag is there, that's why it is applied. Okay, let's add within the div. Okay, that's how it works. So this is the, let me add one more p tag here, and you can see now if you see within this div tag any p tag that is applied. So this is the descendant selector. Okay, it will apply to all the p tags within the div. Okay, this is the first way. And there is one more, which is child selector, and it will apply to all the elements that are the children of a specific element, and it won't go beyond. Okay, let me show you what exactly it is with the example so that it will be easy to understand. This is how we can say child selector. Okay, now I have a blue color. Okay, now these two are applied. Okay, now let me go within this, all the p tags by default it will apply. Okay, again it became a div. Let me just change it to section. Okay, now you will see the difference. Okay, so this child selector, which is of greater than symbol, what it will do is it will apply to div and its child directly, but it will not go to the next level, next level, next level. Okay, that's why now you are seeing this p text with div applied that particular blue color, but for this p tag it is not applied. Okay, but if you want to apply to all of the children and all, for that type of scenario you have to go like this. Okay, this is how the descendant selector will apply to n number of childs, and it will go to n number of levels. But when it comes to the child selector, it will be applied to direct selectors, not for the next level. So that's how it works. Okay, the next one is adjacent sibling selector, which is, okay, let me just write this so that it will be much easier to understand. Now if you see, nothing is applied. Let me just cut this, put it here. Adjacent to this div and the p tag it will apply. Okay, so the adjacent sibling selector, okay, it will apply as soon as this particular div is done, and the first one, whatever the p tag that we have, it will apply to that. So that's how it is applied to this one instead of others. Okay, let me just change this to outside p. Since I applied h1, it is taking this black color. It has that feature. Okay, let me just keep this. Okay, this is how the adjacent sibling works. And there is general sibling selector, which is the tilt symbol. Okay, what it will do is it will apply to the adjacent one. Okay, let me just see, even for this one also it is applied here. Now let me add it is going be outside, and it is applying outside whatever is there, right, outside the div. Okay, now let's add. Okay, now if you see this particular one, general sibling selector, okay, it won't apply to this color any tag within this div, and it will apply outside. Okay, and if you add plus, it will apply inside and it won't apply outside. Okay, this one, this tilt symbol, it will not apply to anything within this div. All the p tags it will ignore, and outside this div, whatever the p tag that is there, it will apply. So that's why it is applied to these three. So this is how it works. So the next one is pseudo classes. Okay, a pseudo class is used to define a specific state of an element. Okay, that means like when you click a button, or when you mouse over on it, or when you hover on it, for that type of scenario, you will use a pseudo class. Okay, it will have a selector like p tag or any CSS class or any HTML tag, and it's a pseudo class on the right side with the colon and whatever the CSS that we want to apply. Okay, now let's see how we can write this. Okay, within this I'll add hover tag. Okay, when I hover this div, right now it is green color, right? When I hover this div, I want to change its background color to maybe red, and also I want to change the text color to white. Okay, now it is green. See, when I hover on this, now the color changed, and when I go out of this, now the color is black. So now the color is green. Now when I hover on it, it is red color with the text of white color. When I go outside, it is applied this. So this is how the pseudo classes works. Okay, and when you hover on it, not only hover, if you have a button, if you or a link, if you click it, you can even apply on the click event. So any HTML event that occurs on a specific HTML element, in that type of scenario, you can use a pseudo class. Okay, and it will have a selector which is of div and the pseudo class which is hover. Okay, this is how we can apply the pseudo class. The next one is pseudo element. Okay, not only the complete pseudo, not only the complete div, even it can go one next level, and let's add pseudo of first line FIRST, or let's go for the first Okay, now if you see within this div, the first line of content is colored with the background and the color name of white color. Okay, let me add more content here. And now if you notice, whatever the content that is in the first line, that is colored based on this pseudo class first line. Anything, even though the content is of same div content, but anything that is in the next line, it is colored differently. Okay, now let me just push this. It will, and now you see, in all the content that is in the first line, it is applied because we applied first line. Okay, and when you even drag it to right, and the line goes to the next line, so now the content is automatically applied with a different color other than the first line. Okay, this is how it works, the pseudo element. And this is also one more thing that we use on daily basis. You can even apply not only for the first line, you can apply to first letter. There are different, even first letter, first line, and before and after, different things are there that we can use. So the next one is math functions. So we can use CSS and use the math functions like calculate or maximum or minimum functions within this. Let's see how calc works. Okay, within, now we have this div. Okay, what we will do is we will add a width which will be calculated, okay, based on 100% of the width minus 100 pixel. What it will do is it will always take the 100% of the width minus 100 pixel. Okay, every time it will add minus 100 pixel to this width. Okay, and whatever the screen width is, it is. Now let me just drag this. If you see, even though I dragged it to the left, okay, still it is giving 100 pixel to the right. Okay, that means out of 100% of the width, you want to cut down 100 pixel always. So whatever the screen it is, it will calculate and it will set the width accordingly. Okay, the next one is max function. Okay, for the same we can say the max. Okay, if the screen width is 50%, okay, within the 50% take the minus 100%, or you can say, okay, if it is 50% take 100 pixel. Okay, let me just cut this down to see it. Now it is applied 100 pixel. Let me just change it to 100%. So within this, whatever is the maximum, it will take that maximum out of these two. Okay, either it will take maximum percentage of screen, or if the screen is smaller, it will go for 500 pixel. Okay, so whatever is the max at any point of time, it will take that. Okay, now in this screen, now it took around 300 pixel only. Now if you see the width, okay, let's check. Now if you see the width, it took 500 pixel width and 300 pixel height. Okay, for suppose if I increase this, if the screen size is 100%, when I move this, whatever is the maximum, it will take accordingly. Okay, but minimum of it will take 500 max, definitely. Okay, whatever is the this, even if you go down less screen size, it will still keep that 500 as it is. It won't go below the 500. Okay, that is the maximum, and we can say minimum. So there is one more thing called minimum. In this, whatever is the minimum, it will take that. So within this full screen, what will be the minimum? Screen size is 100% and 500 pixel is less, right? So this particular total screen width will be around 1000 pixel. Okay, out of this, the least to less total width is 1000 pixel. Okay, that will be 100%. This is 1000. Okay, with this, what we are saying in the current scenario, 1000 pixel or 500 pixel, whatever is the minimum, just use it. Okay, 100% meaning it will take the full screen, it will be around 1000 pixel right now. Okay, this is how it works. The minimum and the maximum goes the opposite direction. Now let's look at CSS Grid. Okay, so CSS Grid will have a grid container, which is the outer layer, and grid items, all the items that are part of the container. Okay, now we'll consider this as grid container. Okay, within this we will add more number of divs, and it will be of grid item. It will become like a grid item 1. So basically, screen grid is going to divide the screen into 12 pieces, and we can align accordingly based on our preference. Okay, now I don't know how many I added. Let me just check. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. Right now I have these 12 items. I want to align 2 in a row or 3 in a row or 4 in a row. For that type of scenario, how we can apply CSS? Okay, you can go for the container. Okay, within the container we can say display as grid. Okay, this is the first property, and how many columns you want to keep in each row. Okay, how many columns we want to keep in each row, that will be of grid template columns. For this, what we need to say is how many auto strings that we give, it will take those many. Okay, now if you see on this particular screen, since I gave 2 auto, so it created 2 columns right now. Okay, if I add more, now I'm adding a third one. Okay, it is created 3 rows. Now I'm adding 4. Okay, now I'm adding 5. Now I'm adding 6. So this will work. The grid divides this whole screen into 12 pieces. Okay, 12 chunks. So if you give 12 here, it will take all these items and keep it in the same row. Okay, let me just add more, just for our understanding purpose. Now if you see, everything is in the same row. Okay, because all the 12 I kept it in single row. Okay, what happens if I add one more? Okay, let me add one more. Now you see it went to the next row, because this grid divides this whole screen into only 12 pieces. It cannot go beyond that. Okay, let me just maximize it. Now if you see, even though I gave the full screen width, still all the first 12 items are in the first row, and the 13th one is in the next row. Okay, it is 13th actually. It is 13th actually. Let me change it to 13. Okay, and add the 14th as well. Okay, now if you see, it will maximum it can divide up to only 12, and anything beyond it will push to the next row. Okay, that's how the grid CSS grid works. Okay, so if you want to give a gap between the columns, you can go for column gap. Okay, you can say some pixel, it will give the gap. Okay, now you can say 100, it will give the gap between the columns. At the same time, we can say row gap, and it will work the same way. It will give the gap between the rows. Okay, so this is one more, to give the spaces between the columns and rows. This is how you can align and set. And also we can even set styles to each individual one also. Let me just take one grid item. Right now I'll just add only one. Okay, here for this class we can apply the CSS to each individual one, like grid, column, start and end. Okay, we can divide further these into pieces of first one taking 3 and push the leftover to next row. Likewise we can set. Okay, now 1 because it will take 1. Now if I give 3, okay, now if you see it took 3 spaces. The first one itself took 3 spaces. Now when I give 4, see the first row itself all the 4 pieces it took. Okay, starting from 1, if I say 0, again it will push from 0 until 3. Okay, this is the column start, where you want to start the 0th column or the second column. Okay, and at the same time column end is 3. Okay, let me just add here column start and column end is 4. Okay, started with 1, gave the space 2, and again it is ended at 4. So from 4 it just continued. Okay, at the same time we can even apply the same to row as well. The row start and the row end. Okay, the start is 1, end is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, because it is ended, it just pushed from there. Even add number 5, it will push more. 6, it is pushed more. 7, this is how you can give row start and row end. That is the first step to start. So this is the basic CSS tutorial for the person whoever want to start learning CSS for the first time. Let's start writing CSS and understand the box model. So box model is one of the key concept in CSS. So any HTML component that can have a height, a width, and the border and the padding and a margin. All these CSS working together and rendered onto the browser, and it will create a box model. So now let's create a box model and try to understand the basics of CSS. So right now I open the Visual Studio Code. I have a folder called CSS and main.css class and the main.html file. Okay, in this video I'm using an extension, Visual Studio extension called live server. So let's start writing the CSS and understand the box model. So in the Visual Studio Code, if you type doc, it will automatically give this HTML, basic HTML piece, okay, that you are seeing here. So let me just change this to box model, okay, and let me create a div and I'll give a class. I'll name it as a box model. I'll write the content as box model. Okay, now let me start this on the live server. The live server is started on this particular port. Okay, now let's start writing the box model CSS. Okay, so I have a CSS class here. So in this class, what I'm going to do is I'll add this particular CSS class. So the class should be referred with the dot in front of the class name. Before I use it, I need to import that CSS file in this. So for that you may need to use link rel and you can say the style sheet. So the style sheet and href of main CSS. So this is how you can import the CSS class into the HTML. Since this is not, I'm not using any framework, so for that reason I'm directly importing here. Okay, now let's start updating the CSS first. Okay, now we have plain text box model basics. Let's first add a height of 200 pixel and a width of 200 pixel. Okay, now you don't see the difference because there is no background color. Let's add the background color. Okay, so now if you see, it has a height of 200 pixel, width of 200 pixel, and the background color, okay, yellow green. Now let's push this content to center align both vertically and horizontally. For that we have to use flexbox. So justify content center. Now it will align the content to center both horizontally and vertically. Okay, now let's add border style. Okay, so if you give dashed, it will become like this. Okay, instead we'll give solid. Okay, now we got the solid border. Okay, now let's add a margin for this. Okay, 5 pixel. It is not visible. Let's add 50 pixel. Okay, if you give plain margin, okay, it will apply the margin of 50 pixel on all the 4 sides. Okay, all the 4 sides, because margin comes out of the particular HTML element. So there is a margin of 50 pixel here, 50 pixel here, 50 pixel here, 50 pixel here. Okay, now to see the right side one, let's just remove this width. Okay, now you see, after removing the width, so now there is a margin of 50 pixel on the top, left, bottom, right. Okay, if you want to give specific margin, you can say margin top. So this will apply only on the top. Okay, now you see only on the top, left side, right side, there is no margin. Okay, now let's add margin left. Okay, it is applied on the left. Now let's add margin right. Now it is applied on the right. Okay, and margin bottom also there. Okay, now you don't see because there is nothing under this particular div. Okay, so this is how margin works. So if you give margin, it will apply on 4 sides. And next one is padding. Okay, padding also works the same way, but it will be applied inside the div. Okay, margin is applied for, suppose you have a box model CSS. Okay, margin is applied outside this div. Okay, padding is applied inside this div for whatever the content that is displayed. That means padding applied to this with 50 pixel on the top, right, left, bottom. Margin is outside this div, top, right, bottom, left. Okay, even the padding also we can change it to just apply on one end. So padding left. Now if you see, for the content there is a more padding on the left side. Now let's change it to top. Okay, padding is applied on the top. Now you can add padding to the right. Okay, now the padding is applied on the right. Let's add padding bottom. Okay, so it is applied on the bottom. Either if you have a scenario where you want to apply the padding on 4 sides, you can do it like this, or if you want to just apply to only specific side, like only on the top, you can do it like this. And if you want to just add the padding only on the top and left, okay, this is how you can add top and left. If you want to apply on 4 sides, simply go for just padding. Same with the margin also. Okay. Now you see you have a HTML element which is of div, and there is a height of 200 pixel. Okay. And current width I removed it. It will automatically take the total screen width. Okay. And I'm using display flex. Flex box is going to align the content. Okay. Display flex, align item center. There is only text that is center aligned, justify the content center. Okay. For this particular reason, align items, let's just remove one of these and see how this is going to be. Now if you see, align items, center aligned the text from top to bottom. Okay, now when I add justify content center, now it is aligned from left to right. Okay, let's remove the align items. Okay, if you see, so align items is applied on top and bottom. Justify content center applied on the left and right. Even you can remove this and change it to left or right, okay, or center. The same way for align items also. Okay, to see the box model, go to developer tools and go to elements. Okay, within this elements you can see this box, right? This is the box that we are talking about. This is the box model. Okay. Okay. Now if you see, there is a margin of 50 pixel on the top, right, bottom and left. Okay, that is coming from here, this margin. Okay. Now let's see, there is a padding of 50 pixel on 4 sides. That is coming from here. Okay. And if you see, there is a border. Okay, 1500. That border, because I gave a solid border style. Okay, for that reason it took that space. And if you see, the actual content is here within this 597 by 200. Okay, 200 of height, 597 pixel of width. Okay, if you want to change this to 200 width, we can just change it to width 200 pixel. Okay, now if you see, the height and width is 200 pixel. And if you don't give the width, it will take the total screen width. But there is a padding and margin, so margin is applied on the right side, so that's why it is pushed. So this is the box model. Okay, as a CSS starter, first better to understand what is this box model. And this box model can be applied not only just for a div, okay, any HTML element, it can be applied. Okay, this is the basics about a box model. Let's discuss the flex box in CSS. So this is one of the important CSS feature, and that every UI developer should know, because we use Flexbox on daily basis, especially the UI developer. Almost every day we use. Okay, so basically what is Flexbox? Flexbox is a way to align the items on the HTML page or the web page. Okay, like all the HTML elements that we have, like a div, text box, or any sort of forms, or any sort of whatever the content that we display on the page, all these items that we are going to align in a specific order, or specific left side, right side, top, bottom, and all these adjustments that we use for the user to experience the application when they access it. So for that reason we use a Flexbox, and a Flexbox is a way to align the content on the web page. Okay, so basically Flexbox will have a flex container which is of a parent, and flex items that are part of the parent. So anything that comes under flexbox container, so whatever the CSS that we apply to flex container, it will be applied to the container as well as its flex items. So flex items are like a children's of a flex container. Now let's write the CSS and understand this flex box better. So right now I have a project. I open this in Visual Studio Code. I have a folder with a CSS class as well as a main.html. Okay, so right now let me start by typing doc. So it will give the HTML template. Okay, plain HTML. We'll change the title to Flexbox tutorial. Okay, and I need to import the CSS file. Style sheet and the H reference main.css. Okay, this is how we can import the CSS class. Okay, now let me just start with the basic code, then we'll add the CSS, actual CSS. Okay, I'm adding multiple divs. I'll add this to every div. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, let me start this in live server. Okay, now right now, so if you see this content, it is in this order. Okay, but it is not looking good. Okay, let's first start by adding a class container. This is a parent container. Okay, now let's apply the CSS from the CSS class, the flex CSS. Okay, its name can be anything. Okay, it shouldn't be a container. Okay, so now let's add the background color for the whole container. Okay, now I added the background color. So the first property is, to use the flex box, we have to say display flex. Okay, if you see, as soon as I added display flex, everything went to one row instead of column. Okay, let me just remove this. See, if you want to align this content in same row, simply add display flex. It is aligned to single row. Okay, and there is no spaces, but it is aligned to single row. So display flex property is going to push the content to display in same row. Okay, within this, the next property is flex direction. Okay, it will decide the direction of whether it is a row or a column or row reverse or column reverse. Okay, let's see. So now you don't see the difference because it is in the row format. Okay, let me just add height and width to this div, all the divs. Okay, to separate them and to view it easily. Let's see, 200 and 200 pixel. Let me just give minor margin to see them properly. I added a margin, but since all these are part of the same container with yellow color, and each one doesn't have any background color. That's why it is not visible properly. Okay, now let's add the background color for this, which is maybe yellow green. Okay, now you can see, so this whole piece is a flex container and each one is flex item. Okay, let's push this content to center. To push this content to center, again we have to use display flex, justify content, center. It is from left to right. So the justify content and align item center. So now the content is centered. Okay, now let's go back to the flex box. Now if you see the flex row, because I gave it as a row, so now right now all these flex boxes, flex items are in the row. Okay, now let's change it to column. Now you see everything is in single column. Okay, to align them in column format, you can do this with the flex direction. Now let's see column reverse. Okay, column reverse, now you are not able to see it, but it is started at the end and came to the top. Okay, now let's see row reverse so that you can see easily. It is started from the right and moved to the left. Okay, so column align the flex items in row or column. We can use flex direction. Now you have all these 5, but you want to show only 3 on the top and the leftover next. Each row you want to show only 3 items. Okay, for that type of scenario we have to use flex wrap. Okay, it is wrapped, and now you see the floor row reverse that you can see. It is started from bottom and it went up. Okay, now let's say just row. Now you see the difference. It is started from the top, from the row itself, but it is started. But now when you say reverse, row reverse, it is reversed from the end to, it started at the 5th box and it went to the 1st box. Okay, that's how it went in the opposite direction. The same way, even the column. Okay, you see 1 2 3 4 5. Now let's say, now make it to column reverse. Now you see 5th one is on the top, 1st one is at the bottom. So this is how the flex direction works. Okay, now let me just remove this, and flex wrap. If I remove this wrap, if you see all these are in the same row. If you have 10, it will try to align in the same row. Instead, just wrap them to push it to the next row. Okay, for that you can use flex wrap, and within this also you can say no wrap. That means even if you give this or not, there will be no use with no wrap. Okay, so for no wrap there is no point of using it. Okay, if you see wrap reverse, now you noticed 1 2 3 4 5, it went in the opposite direction. Okay, now when I change it to flex wrap, it will start from 1 to 5 and space was added at the end. When I say wrap reverse, okay, it is reversed and the space came here instead of the first row, the second row. Okay, this is how it works. If you want to use the wrapper, you want to align only certain number of items in each row and push the leftover items to the next row, then that for that type of reason you can simply use flex wrap. Okay, this is how it works, the flex wrap. There is something called flex flow. It will also work the same way like flex direction, so there is no point of looking at it. Okay, now let's look at the justify content. Okay, justify content. see, let me just remove this flex wrap. Flex start, it is started the flex start, and it is started the flex end. Now you don't see that difference. Okay, the flex start, it will start on the left side and it will move. Okay, now what I'll do is, let me just cut down couple of divs so that we can see this working. Now you can see the difference, right? Flex start meaning it is started on the left side and moving towards right side. Okay, now you can see the difference here. Now you understood the difference, right? Now let's go to flex justify content flex end. Now it is started from the right side to the left side. Okay, if you want to give equal space, okay, or you want to center align this and give the same space on the left side and right side. Okay, now you can say center. Okay, left side and right side same space and they are centered. Okay, but the left side space is more, right side space is more, and between the space is less. Okay, you want to apply the same space across left, right. Okay, now you can, if you see left, right, same spaces came, but this space, same space came from this item and this item also. For that reason you are seeing more space here. Okay, and if you want to properly align them, you can say space evenly. Now if you see, the space will be exactly same on left and right. Okay, there is one more thing called space around also. Okay, so this is how we can give space and align this to the left, right, center, and with the spaces. Okay, justifying that specific content. So this is the purpose of justify content. Now let's look at align items. So let's start with flex start. Okay, let me just make some minor change. Height of 300 pixel. To see the purpose of this particular align items, we need this. That's why I'm adding it. Okay, now we have three different heights. Okay, align items flex start, it is started on the left side. Okay, now let's say flex end. Okay, now if you see flex start and flex end, it became opposite. Okay, let's go back to flex start. Okay, first flex box, it is on the top. So all these flex start meaning it will push all the whatever the height it is, but the items of the top side of the items will be at the same height. Okay, same level. So this level. Okay, now if you say flex end, it will be pushed to the bottom. So all the items lower end will be at the same height. Okay, that is the purpose. And if you have a scenario to display that like this, you can use this. And along with this, within this, if you want to align regardless of the height, you want to center align them, now you can go for this. So overall the middle content is centered regardless of the height. Okay, so for that reason you can use center, and even you can say a baseline. Okay, you don't see much difference, but it is also aligns. If you have too many with different heights and widths, that you can see, that's when you can see, but it will align to center. Okay, and let's see the stretch. Okay, stretch also starting from the top, it is stretching. If you don't have height and width, it is automatically stretching. Okay, now let me show this when you can see this stretch difference. So you don't have any height and widths, okay, but it will automatically stretch because of the stretch. Okay, if the content is more, let's try. Let me just give the width to see it better. Okay, now if you see how the stretch worked, there are 3 strings here. There is only one. Even though I didn't give any height to increase this, right? But it is stretched and all these are at the same height because of the stretch. Now if I remove the stretch, okay, now if you see the height changed. So stretch is going to automatically update the height, okay, accordingly. If you give, unless and until if you give hard coded height for each one, okay. So this is the purpose of stretch. Even if you go for baseline, okay, it is aligned to the top. So these are the options that we have in the flex box. So the next one is a gap. Okay, let me add gap of 10 pixel. Okay, it will apply the space gap between them. Okay, now even we can use gap on x axis and y axis. Okay, this side and this side gap between the items only. Okay, or we can directly use, instead of x and y, you can say gap, sorry, only just say row gap of 20 pixel. Now if you see, the gap is added here, the row gap between these two. Now let me change it to column gap. Column gap, if you see, that gap came here. Okay, instead of giving like this, you can say directly gap, row gap. Okay, let me give row gap and column gap. Okay, within single line you can give. Okay, this is how we can give the gaps between. These are the major CSS that we need to know about Flexbox. Right now, Flexbox is part of the regular CSS and it is not part of any third-party library like Bootstrap or anything. So if you want to align an items without using any library like Bootstrap, okay, or Tailwind, so with the plain CSS you can align the items on the page.